Christman. I'm an IT supervisor at Esse Health, and I supervise the IT team, which consists of 3 network guys and 3 system admin guys. I really do like that everyone's being included in this cultural process, because if everybody knows what we're working on doing, then they understand that we're trying to improve them, number one. And not only that, they understand when I say something, there's a framework and a language that I can use that we have a common understanding of. And I think we've all tried to communicate these things in the past, but with it being laid out precisely the way it is in Lifework, then we can example it, and then they go, oh, I see what you're trying to do, and it's a little more effective. I think the thing that surprised me the most about the cultural change was that some people wouldn't go for it. And honestly, I thought, well, everybody can probably, bend to this, but I think a few people didn't, and they kind of exited themselves from the process. So it did surprise me a little bit, but I guess if you really don't want to do the cultural change, that might happen. I think the biggest surprise for me was I thought I had myself figured out, and I found out as I went through this process, I thought I was being straightforward and full disclosure. That's the big moment for me. And when I realized that I was being such a nice person, that I was beating around the bush a lot of the time, that straightforward and full disclosure, I wasn't really doing it to the best of my ability, and it was negative or affecting my relationships with everybody around me. So when I figured that out, I think I became a more effective manager. I got to the point a little quicker, drew the line in the sand, made things happen. I'd say if you want to help, especially the younger generation like the millennials, some of them need a different type of structural background than maybe my generation. But even my generation, I think, benefited from it because of the commonality of the framework in which I speak about it. What you will have to expect is it will change your culture. But in my opinion, it will change it for the better. If someone doesn't go along with it, that might be a consequence. But the majority of people I've seen accept it, and there were those that actually felt like it wasn't a good thing that have later admitted to me, well, at least gives me a way to talk to people that are younger than me or are at a different level than me, and I'm more understanding and I have the ability to relate to them. If you're not doing something, you need to do something. This is a great piece of, how should I say this? It's a way of doing it that is very formulated, that comes in kind of light, but at the same time giving the information. You will understand, or have to understand, that you're going to get a lot of pushback initially. And the pushback can sound legitimate because some people are already doing a pretty decent job and they're going, why do I need this? What they need to realize is it's not about them, it's about the whole unit. As a team, the company as a whole is made up of weak pieces. And sometimes those weak pieces don't have any pattern background like some of us who maybe came from a different generation did. So when you have this generation and you have multiple generations that are trying to interact, the common framework will enhance it. Well, I had an employee who wasn't real happy with another employee that he didn't feel was as dedicated. And, there are people that work at different ways, and as a manager, I've learned to deal with all kinds of personalities and different people. But in this particular case, this person demanded a lot of himself, and when the other person didn't necessarily come up to speed there, he made a lot of assumptions without ever directly addressing the employee and talking to him, and even possibly thinking about, well, maybe this is an opportunity to mentor. So having a one-on-one session with this employee, and he wanted to talk about the other situation. He didn't tell me who it was, but I did figure out who it was. But either way, it helped me to help him understand, wait a second, you have the opportunity to bring some very positive things, and if you will not necessarily listen to other people's, what they're saying, you can bring this and break it open and give this guy an opportunity to learn from you. And so he walked away with a whole different attitude. He wasn't as, I'm not sure exactly what I would say the way it was, but he was not happy with the guy, and then he realized, wait a second, I can make a difference, and it changed his attitude. I guess I would say to them that there's a benefit that you may not realize at first, and you're going to have to go through the painful process of getting everybody to understand it's got some value. And it takes a little while because some people don't realize that. Also, if it starts to feel very personal initially, and it's really not about, it is about finding out who you are as a person, getting the understanding of your purpose, which is very important, I believe. And I really appreciate the fact that Lifework works on you as a blueprint so that you get your purpose, and then you can figure out how can I make my purpose part of my vision for my daily work. And all the pieces of that have to do with, you have to understand that each individual is either other-directed or self-directed. And some people don't realize that. They're being other-directed. And sometimes it's a macho thing, sometimes it's just, I don't have a good pattern, and they do these things. But with this, we develop an ability to talk about it and possibly change the patterns. And then there's these aha moments where people, when they see this, they go, well, you know, maybe I could change this rather than continue to act. And they do have a lot of light bulbs going off. I believe that's probably one of the basic 101 things you need. If you can't trust somebody, you can't give them a job, expect to get it done. You don't know whether you can take their word for it. To have a good employee, you need to be able to say, can you do this? If they say yes, you don't have to constantly go check back up on them. I think it's the baseline for all of our relationships, whether it's at work or at home or anywhere else. Well, I do feel like trustworthiness is happening here. I think a lot of people are a lot more particular about how they answer you now, and I believe that whether outwardly or just somehow subliminally, they've gotten the message that, you know, they're not trying to be other-directed. I think they stop and think before they say something. The good thing about being self-directed is it doesn't mean you have to do what somebody told you just with no input whatsoever. You have the ability to go and negotiate, well, maybe there's a better way to do it. You're not just somebody that has to do what somebody says. Self-directed empowers you to understand, I don't have to rebel or act out against it, but I don't have to be a yes man. I can say, yes, but why don't we modify it this way? And there may be ultimately a reason you can't do that, but this gives people power, and I think once they realize they have the power to negotiate a change, not just rebel, it alleviates a lot of the pain points. Well, I think the most challenging to me initially was I realized some people weren't going to be on board. And I'm a person that likes everybody to be together in unity, and I was trying hard to bring some of these people on board. And I think I had to realize that some people may exit themselves from this, and I don't like losing people, but you know, those are personal choices. You can't make someone change. But I think the people that did initially, really, some of them that I thought were really pushing back actually let go, let it help them, and turned off much better. And then some that weren't necessarily being full disclosure about where they are, they were acting like, in a sense, being yes people initially, and then just, I can't do this. But honestly, it's not trying to ask you to bare your soul to everybody. It's a matter of, can you be real? Can you speak things in a way that you're self-directed, not other-directed? Most important thing about it. I think with my colleagues, with them all understanding this, we could have conversations that were productive and that would have meaning to them at a different level than before when we didn't have this common framework, because we were all coming from different directions and this framework made a commonality there. Same thing happened with my supervisor. He was a proponent of it. He realized the nuances of it had to be worked through, and it was not something that's necessarily easy, but it has value. But as I spoke to him about individuals on my team or their colleagues that I interacted with, this became a framework also to talk about it. So it was very helpful. I think I would like to answer the part about made my life better overall. Yes, it has, because I mentioned the two things earlier that were straightforwardness and full disclosure. I believe that I beat around the bush as we have the colors that we assign people, and I can't necessarily spend the time to define them, but I'm a blue, I'm a people person. So I would operate on trying to keep unity and everything nice and kumbaya. Not that I am afraid of being bold or confronting something, but I think I felt like I was being straightforward and full disclosure when I really was taking the long way around. As soon as I shortcut that, actually it was easier, and I still can be the nice person. So that's where it brought a lot of value. And I think that transcends not just work, but every relationship you have, whether it's outside of here or just a one-time you're dealing with a salesman, any of those things. Being straightforward and full disclosure became very important to me. I was very, very honest about things, but I didn't realize I was just kind of sliding into it rather than going straight to the point, which actually is much more efficient. Well, when I'm being mentored, I feel like that it's a validation of the things I'm seeing, and I have the ability to talk about the people I'm mentoring while I'm being mentored, which is an advantage to me, because then I can bounce things off my boss so that he can give me his input on that. The other thing is that when I am actually in a mentoring situation with the people that I'm mentoring on a monthly basis, I've been able to see people that were very reluctant, even pushing back, or maybe had the wrong idea that it had to do with, I'm going to have to bare my soul and I really don't want to do that. I was able to see them and help them overcome that by the way I put it. And I was just happy that I could do that, because regardless of how much they do or don't get out of it, I saw them overcome at least that obstacle. And that gave them an opportunity to start buying into it. And I think their attitude changed. They went from not as much an open countenance to a pretty open countenance. So I was very impressed that this has the ability to have that framework. I think the training sessions, I enjoyed the little video clips. I remember the one about the little boy coming up and interrupting the mom constantly, and I think a lot of people don't know what to do about that situation, and it is true. Don't give them the sugar by stopping and letting them interrupt. Just tousle their hair, grab them, hug them, put them in a bear hug or whatever, while you continue to talk to the adult. And to me, that was just one of the most perfect examples I've ever seen of that's the way you do it. I think I'd inadvertently done that, but this was a great framework and a great way to relay this to a lot of younger people with kids. And I think the other thing is you have to do it with employees too, because sometimes you can be on the phone or doing a job and somebody wants to just constantly interrupt you. You can't give them their sugar, meaning the thing that will make them go, this is how I get my attention. So I thought that was really good. With the people that I've had some issues with during the time we've had this program, they had enough knowledge that they saw where I was headed when I started talking to them. So that framework again came into play. Like if I had to approach an issue and say, look, we got to change this, you can't be doing this, and here's why, I could use some examples from the program, and they would pick up where I was coming up, and it would be more enhanced. It would have a little more background for them. I didn't have to do the full explanation of why this is not a good way to do things. So it worked very well. It fits very well because it has to do with treating people fairly. Honesty is extremely important, along with trustworthiness. And then understanding that you can actually negate from those by not looking at the total 8 values. And so not realizing it, even though I was a very honest person, being around the bush is not being as honest as you can be when you're fully straightforward and full disclosure. So I enjoyed that part of it. And the other thing is I like to mentor people. I like to be able to lift them up and help them. And when you have this framework of mentoring where you can deal with something, talk about it, and even ask them how they're doing in relationships, and then without knowing a thing about the relationship, in fact you don't want to know, be able to talk to them and guide them a little bit, I had no problems with it. It worked very well with who I am. And my purpose is peace, and that would be that just to find peace in everything I do. And so I'm using everything I do to achieve that.